In this recording, I want to talk about autofill sequence. Autofill you've already learned about, might have seen it in other places, or if you click on a cell and then grab the little fill bar, the little fill handle down here, it'll fill this across. And that's it's very commonly used to copy formulas, but it can also be used to create a sequence or a series of values, and that's what I want to show you today. I've opened up sample one, which should be available in your student file someplace. I haven't quite decided where I'm going to put those yet, but we'll figure that out later. Look for the sample one file, and then I'm just going to save it real quick as a new name in the same place that I'm at right now, which is the desktop. You can save it wherever you like. And I'm going to call this autofill. In the worksheet, there's a tab labeled autofill as well. I'm going to use that tab to do these examples. And I have a bunch of different kinds of examples of ways that autofill can be used to simplify your data entry. This autofill sequence, I'm just going to call it autofill from right now. Its biggest advantage is it allows you to create a series or a sequence of values very, very quickly in your spreadsheet, saving you typing time when you're developing these things. It's its only purpose. As an example, actually I think I'm slid over a little bit. Yep, here we go. Here's an example where I've started a sequence of numbers 1, 2, and I want a whole bunch more of those. Easiest way to do that is simply grab the fill handle and then pull down, and notice the little pop-up shows me that it's going to fill these values, and I'll go down to 20, and you can scroll off the screen, but there's where the 20 is going to be, and it fills in all the numbers, saving me time doing that. There is one shortcut. I'm going to undo that. There is one shortcut that many people don't know, and the book doesn't mention, that if you want a sequence of numbers that starts at one number and goes up by 1, you don't have to give it 2 sample numbers to complete the sequence. All you have to do is point to that little fill handle, hold the control key down, and drag. Oops, I think I missed it. Let's try again. Oh, I'm working on a Mac here and recording, so let me try something just a smidge different here. There we go. I'm holding the control key down on a Windows computer. I'm working on a Mac. So the shift combinations are a little bit different, but that doesn't matter to you. You're using Windows machine. If you hold the control key down and drag that fill handle, it automatically goes up by 1. So I can demonstrate that here again. There's the 10, and if I hold the control key down and drag, it goes up by 1, which can come in very handy. It's just a shortcut. You can do the same thing by putting in a 1 and a 2 to give it the sequence that you want, and then just simply grab the fill handle and it'll do the same work. But sometimes you don't want to count by 1s, you want to count by something different. Here's an example. I want to count by 5s. In this case, the only way to do it is to provide the first 2 values in the sequence, select them both, and then use the fill handle and drag down, and notice it goes up by 5s. And you can do anything there. You can go up by 3s, you can go up by 10s, you can go up by hundreds. You can even go up by decimal places. So here's another example, and what I haven't tried, I'm just going to experiment here. What happens if I drag this with a control? It goes up by 1. Notice 1.25, 2.25, 3.25. Okay, so I didn't know that would work, but that works pretty well, but I don't see a real big advantage to that. So bottom line is, if you control fill, control and drag the little plus sign here, if you control fill value, it goes up by 1. Now, I really want these to go up by a quarter, so what I'm going to do is provide it the second value, the 0.5. It's the second value. And then all I have to do is drag. And notice now it's going up by a quarter every single time. Be nice to format those, not really necessary here, but that's way too many. There, now they all look the same. So very easy to fill by a different value of any kind. So you can fill by any sequence of values that you want. A quarter, a half, whole numbers, a third, whatever you want. The problem with a third is it's going to go up by 0.333 every single time, and you might not get exactly 1, so be careful if you're doing something like that. But nice round numbers, quarters, halves, work pretty well. Built into Excel are some sequences that are already known by Excel. Here I've abbreviated the month January. If I drag that down, notice it automatically gives me the list of months in order, and when we get to December, starts over again. That's convenient. If you prefer to have the full name, you can do the same thing. Do the same thing with the days of the week. In this case, I started at Monday. Excel knows what the day of the week abbreviations are. We'll see why a little later, right, why it knows these things. Monday through Sunday, and then it starts over again. Same thing with the full-blown name of the week, day of the week. The book shows you an example if you want just work days, skip the weekends. That's a little more complicated. It takes a formula. There is no sequence there that you can work, though I'm curious. I want to try something here. What I'm going to do is take the Monday through Friday. I'm going to stop. And then I'm going to say, that's my example. Let's continue that process. Nope, I'm still getting Saturdays and Sundays. I was hoping that because I just had weekdays in here, that the series would just fill weekdays, but it doesn't work that way. The book shows you how to do that. It uses a Workday function, and I will show you that before this recording is done as well. We can work with not only these known series sequence of numbers, we can also use dates. So here's an example that I've already primed. I want the 15th of every month. For whatever reason, I can just drag that down and it bumps it up by 1 month and starts a new year when the time comes. Can do the same thing with times. Here I have 9 o'clock and 9:15. That's a 15-minute. Again, I'm giving it 2 examples, and I can fill that down, and it fills them in 15-minute increments if that's what you need. Excel recognizes numbers inside of labels, so here's Q1, but in quarters, Excel is even smarter than that. There's a lot of people who do quarterly reports, and so Excel recognizes that there are only 4 quarters, and so every time it hits quarter number 4, it starts over again. Can be very handy if you're doing those kinds of reports. Same thing with the full-blown Word, quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4. Could even do if and I'm going to skip over here to Volcker 1. If there's a number anywhere inside your label that you're filling, and it's got text as well, it simply bumps the number up by 1. So now I have Volcker 6 through 9. There's a number in first inning here. So if I'm in baseball mode here, there's a 1 there. It'll bump the 1 up. And notice in this case, it's even smart enough. If you can see the little pop-up, I'll let go here in just a second. It actually recognizes first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, and so on, as part of that series, and it bumps those up as well. The one thing it doesn't do, it says after the 9th inning, the game's over, start over again. No, it lets you go into extra innings instead. It just keeps going, bumping the number up and putting the appropriate 2 letters after the number, 4th, 10th, 11th, 14th, and so on. So this fill series can come in very handy, but sometimes there are series that you use very often, frequently, that are not known. For instance, at Midstate, we have 4 different campuses: Stevens Point, Adams Friendship, Marshfield, and Wisconsin Rapids. And if I need that sequence frequently, I can teach Excel that sequence so that it recognizes it and allows me to use it in filling, and later on in a different unit, in Unit 5 or Unit 3, I believe it's going to be, you can even use this to do sorting, and so we can sort campuses in different ways. In order to define your own custom lists, you have to go into the File Options. So I'm going into File, Options, and I'm going to the Advanced Options, and I'm going to scroll down until I see there's some autofill stuff, but there's a button here. It can be a little tricky to find sometimes. Edit Custom Lists button. As you can see, Excel already has 1, 2, 3, 4 custom lists. This is how Excel knows that the months are January, February, March. The days of the week are Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and what order they come in, because they are defined as a custom list in Excel, fresh out of the box. You don't have to do anything. But you can, if you wish, create your own list of commonly used things. For a while there, I had 6 kids in my family, extended family, and they had chores to do, and I had a spreadsheet to keep track of who did what where, and I needed to enter their names over and over and over again. I created a custom list of my 6 kids' names so I didn't have to keep typing them over and over. We can do the same thing with campuses. Here it's waiting for me to enter whatever campus, any values that I want. So I'm going to enter the campus names in here. And then say OK. And now if I go back to that, if I can find it here, it's pretty close to the bottom. There's my edit custom lists. On this computer, it recognizes Stevens Point, Wisconsin Rapids, Adams Friendship, Marshfield in that order as a custom list. Now, Marshfield probably ought to come before Adams Friendship because that's our small one. So what I'm going to do is delete this one and add it to the end. So anytime you want to, you can come back here and edit these things. For those of you in the Adams Friendship campus, I apologize for putting you last, but you are the smallest campus. Okay, so now I click OK, and that, on this computer, on this copy of Excel, that is a custom list. So now what I can do is come into my campuses here, and I can type in Stevens Point, and I can start with any of the campuses, by the way. I don't have to start with Stevens Point because it was first on the list. And now if I use the fill handle, it recognizes that as one of its custom lists and allows you to fill those in. Very handy. But remember, it's only on this computer. So if you build this custom list on a lab computer, for instance, and then move to a different computer in the lab, it won't recognize this list. If you build it at home, it will recognize it on your home computer. This custom list is only stored on your computer. It is not stored in Excel or inside this spreadsheet. It is stored inside your copy of Excel. Another way to do custom lists very quickly is to type it in your spreadsheet and then highlight them all and go back to File, Options again. And scroll down till we see our custom lists. And then I can import. Notice the range of cells is already here, and I can import that as a list. And now these kids' names, employee names, whatever they are on the list. And I can use that to fill, and now if I pull this down, it should just duplicate them. That's not what it would have done before that custom list was created. All right, before I wrap this up, a couple more little things. One thing to recognize is when you do the fill sequence, the values stored in the cells are actual values. They are not formulas. All right, so Excel is not doing some math here. It is behind the scenes doing some math, but what it's storing in the cell is not this one plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5. It's just this one plus, and this one's 10 and this one's 15. We can see what's stored in the cell. Occasionally you want those things to update automatically, so I just want to show you how to do that very quickly. I'm going to insert another column here, and we'll just call this one formula. And I still want to start with 5, but what I want it to do is go up by 5 every single time, regardless of what this first value is. You do that with a formula. So I'm going to put an equal sign in here and say I want to take whatever's in the cell up above me and add 5 to it. And now if I fill that formula, I get the same results. Okay. However, if I change this to 15, all the values automatically update here. If I change this to 15, I'm changing a number and it doesn't do anything. I have to rebuild that sequence. So if you think that the initial value in your list could change, then you're probably better off using a formula. You can use the same kind of formulas to create these kinds of lists. Let me do a quick example of that here. I want to start with the word Monday, or abbreviated Monday, and then down here I'm going to use a Workday formula. Workday is covered in the book, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. Right. But I want the Workday, whoops, I need to finish that. So tell you what, let's do it with the function button. That gives me a little bit of help. And I want to find Workday, and there's the Workday function. And where's my start date? My start date is this one right here. Actually, that's not a date, is it? It wants a date. All right, so I better use dates for that. Let's come over here where I have dates. And on this one, I'm going to say 1/1/2014. Didn't type that very well. 1/1/2014. And now the Workday function. I still like this FX button a little bit better. It gives me that dialog box, and on functions that I'm not very familiar with, like Workday, it's probably easier to let this come up. And what's your start date? My start date is this cell. And how many days do you want to move ahead? 1. Right? Workday has the opportunity to also deal with holidays. I'm not going to worry about that. Click on OK. Now if I format that as a date, notice it went to the next day. But now if I fill that, that's a formula. And so what the formula does is it looks at the cell above, the one, in this case, the 1, 2, and says, give me the next work day that is 1 day beyond that. Give me the next work day that is 1 day beyond that. I bet if we looked at a calendar, and you can check this if you wish, but if you look at a calendar, the 4th and 5th of January 2014 were Saturdays and Sundays. So that's how you use the workday function. That's how you use formulas to create series that might change as time goes on. But if you just need a fixed list, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, certain days of the year, you can use the fill series function that's built into Excel using the little fill handle to drag those down. So let's make use of that. In the sample file here, or in the sample tab, I have a couple of things that I need to fill in. I want to fill in this 1, 2 to be every single day, or actually week, excuse me, of the year. So I want to go to the next week, 1/9/2012, and now I can use those to fill all the way down and fill all the weeks very, very quickly. And I have lots of sample data here that I typed in, and that's going out to November, and I need a little more space. And depending on when you're viewing this video, that may not be, the date may not even exist yet, but we're kind of predicting, I guess. So that was very easy to fill in my weekly data. I can do the same thing with the regions. We have 5 regions. I don't have to create a custom list here because we label our regions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If your regions had names like North and North Central and East and Southwest, then maybe you create a custom list and fill across that way. I'm just going to use region 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so without any typing, especially the way I type, that can be kind of difficult. I type a little bit and then use the fill series to help me get the rest of my headers and column and row headers as well filled in here. So that's auto series. I hope you can put it to use to save you some time when you're building your own spreadsheets.